Hello and welcome to the next edition of the BriefingsDirect Voice of the Customer podcast series. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host and moderator for this ongoing discussion on digital transformation success stories. Our next extreme use case for managing the digital edge interview examines how the IT Gordian Knot of an all-live sporting event is being sliced through via innovation and pluck. We'll now hear how the upcoming Ryder Cup golf match between European and U.S. players is placing a unique combination of requirements on its operators. And we'll learn how the solutions to making the Ryder Cup a digital masterpiece for its 250,000 spectators and many corporate sponsors will set a new benchmark for future mobile sports tournaments across Europe. Here to describe the challenges and solutions for making the latest networks and applications operate in a very dispersed environment is Michael Cole, Chief Technology Officer for the European Tour and Ryder Cup. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you.
What is the Ryder Cup for those who might not know?
The Ryder Cup is a biennial golf event contested by teams representing Europe and the United States. It is, without doubt, the most prestigious team event in golf and arguably the world's most compelling sporting contest in the world. As such, it really is our blue ribbon event and requires a huge temporary infrastructure to serve 250,000 spectators, over 50,000 superfans every day, but also media, journalists, players and their entourage.
Why do you refer to this as blue ribbon? What is it about the U.S. versus Europe angle that makes this so special?
It's special for the players, really. If we look at the pros, they will play the majority of their schedule in a season as individuals. And the Ryder Cup gives them the opportunity to play as a team. And that is special for the players. You can see that in terms of the passion representing either the United States or Europe.
What makes the Ryder Cup such a difficult problem from this digital delivery and support perspective? It seems that the requirements for a new digital architecture are rather extreme.
Technology deployment in golf is very challenging. We have to bear in mind that every course effectively is a greenfield site. We very rarely return to the same course on two occasions. And therefore, how you deploy technology in an environment which is 150 acres large, or put another way, the equivalent of 85 football pitches, is challenging. And doing that as temporary overlay for typically 4 days of operation or 3 days for the Ryder Cup, operationally leading in, deploying that technology, and then bumping out and very quickly onto the next event. We typically deploy up to 5 different infrastructures. One for the TV, one for what we refer to as tournament TV, the fan zones, if you like, on the course, the big digital screens. The scoring network is its own infrastructure, the public Wi-Fi, and of course we have the back-of-house operational infrastructure as well. So it is unique in its challenge in terms of scale and complexity.
It seems to me that it also exemplifies the need for a core capacity that's deeply integrated with two-way high-volume edge, and that's been a big topic of conversation, how to tie the edge and the core together effectively. How does this come together for you, and how do you think that your architectural approach exemplifies what many others are trying to attain?
Technology has a critical role to play for us, whilst we as a European Tour lead the transformation in global golf, and very much putting data at the heart of our game, of our sport, creating the right level of content and insight for our key stakeholders is critical. For us, this is about adopting the HPE Intelligent Edge networking approach, ensuring the processing of data, location-based services, and the distribution of content takes place at the point of interaction with our key stakeholders, i.e. at the edge and on the course.
You mentioned location services. A lot of other use cases come to mind if people are trying to work with that. How challenging was that, and what do you mean by location services as it pertains to the Ryder Cup?
One of the key benefits that the infrastructure will provide is an understanding of people and their behaviours. So we'll be able to track the crowds around the course, and we'll be able to use that insight in terms of behaviours to really create value, both for ourselves in terms of operational delivery, but also for our sponsors, a better understanding of spectators and how they can convert those spectators into customers.
It also strikes me, Michael, that this is a great example of a bring-your-own-device challenge. Perhaps people would prefer to use their cellular networks, but those aren't always available in these particular locations, or might be spotty across the entire golf course. What is it about the types of devices that these fans are using that also provides a challenge?
One of the things that we recently found is actually the correlation between devices and people is kind of interesting. So whilst we're expecting over 51,000 people per day at the Ryder Cup, the number of devices could easily double or treble. Typically, people these days will have 2 to 3 devices. So when we consider the Ryder Cup week and the fact that we will have over 250,000 people attend and even more devices, this is arguably the biggest BYOD environment on the planet this year, and that's a challenge.
What do you bring to bear to solve that challenge, or what are you putting in place so that it's invisible to these end users that their experience is what they expect at home and other areas where they either work or play?
So I use the term frictionless. So I want the experience to be frictionless, the way they onboard, the way they access the Wi-Fi. I want it to be seamless and easy, because for us it's critical to maximize the number of spectators utilizing the Wi-Fi infrastructure. But equally it becomes a source of data and useful for marketing purposes. So the more people that we can get onto the Wi-Fi, convert them into registering and to receiving promotional activity, both from us and from our partners, that's a key measure of success.
What you accomplish at the Ryder Cup will allow you to then go further out into the European Tour. So tell us a little bit about the European Tour and how this sets the stage for extrapolating your success across an even greater distribution of golfing events.
This is, without doubt, the biggest investment that the European Tour has made in technology, and particularly for a Ryder Cup. So it is critical for us that the investment becomes our legacy as well. And I'm very much looking forward to having an adoption of technology that will serve our purposes, not only for the Ryder Cup, not only for this year, but in fact for the next 4 years until the next Ryder Cup cycle. So for me, it's about an investment in a quadrennial period and serving those 47 tournaments each year and making sure that we can provide a consistency of quality beyond the Ryder Cup, but for each of our tournaments across the European Tour schedule.
And how many are there, just to give us a sense of the scale of the European Tour?
We will run 47 tournaments in 30 countries across 5 continents. Our down season is just 3 days. So we are operationally pretty much on the go every day, every week of the year.
All right. Many of our listeners and readers tend to be technologists, so let's dig into the geek stuff a little bit, if you would. Tell us about the solution. How do you solve these problems? What are some of the technologies? And then we'll talk about some of the data issues.
One of the critical aspects for me is to ensure that data, as we said, is very much at the heart of everything we do. And we need to make sure that we have the topology right. And that topology clearly is underpinned by the technological platform, and we will be adopting a classic core distribution and access approach. For the Ryder Cup, we will have over 130 switches in order to provide that ubiquity and overcome one of our greatest challenges of near 100% as we can Wi-Fi coverage across the course. We will need in a region of 700 access switches. So this has scale and scope, but it doesn't stop there. We will effectively be creating our own private cloud. We will be utilizing VMware for a virtual platform. We will have a number of on-prem servers, and that will be configured across 2 network operation centers with full resiliency and duplicity between the 2. So critical for my industry in delivering golf across the operational period of 3 days for the Ryder Cup or 4 days of a traditional golf tournament is 100% availability. We cannot afford any downtime. Even 5 minutes is 5 minutes too much.
And just to dwell on the edge technology a bit, what is it about the Aruba technology from HPE that is satisfying your needs, given this extreme situation of hundreds of acres and hilly terrain and lots of obstacles?
Golf is unique because it's a greenfield site with a unique set of challenges. No two golf courses are the same in the world. The technology platform gives us a modular approach. It gives us the agility to deploy what is necessary where and when. And we can do this in a way with the Aruba platform that gives us true integration, true service management, and a stack of applications that can better enable us to manage that environment, whether it's through the basic management of the infrastructure, through to security and onboarding for the largest BYOD on the planet this year, or whether it's through a range of services that we will integrate into our Spectator app to deliver better value and smarter insight for our commercial family.
Tell us a little bit about Michael Cole. How did your background prepare you for such a daunting undertaking?
My background has always been in technology. I spent some 20 years with British Telecom. More recently, I moved into the area of sport and technology, and following London 2012 Olympics, I then worked for technology companies for the Rio 2016 Olympic Games. I have supported technology companies for the Pyeongchang 2018 Winter Games, and also for the up-and-coming 2020 Tokyo Games, as well as Pan American Games. So I've always been passionate about technology, but increasingly passionate about the use of technology in sport. What I bring to the European Tour is the broader insight around multinational global sports and events, and bringing that insight into golf.
And of course, we should mention that this is happening in September and in France. Where in particular in France is the Ryder Cup this year?
It's being held just outside Paris in Versailles at Le Golf National. And a couple of things I want to say on this. In fact, it's the first time that the European Tour has been held in Europe outside of the United Kingdom since Valderrama in 1995, I think it was. The other interesting aspect, thinking about my background around the Olympics, is actually the Golf National is the venue for the 2024 Olympic Games, in fact, where the event of golf will be held. So, one of my key objectives is to create a compelling and sustainable legacy for those games in 2024.
All right, well, let's fast forward to the third week of September 2018. What will a typical day in the life of Michael Cole be like as you're preparing and then actually executing on this?
Well, there is no typical day. Every day is very different, and we still have a heavy schedule on our European tour. But what is critical is the implementation phase and the run-in to the Ryder Cup. My team were on site to start the planning and early deployment some 6 months ago in February of this year. And the activity now increases significantly. In fact, in the month of June, we took delivery of the equipment on site, initiated the Technology Operations Centre, and in fact the Wi-Fi is now live. We also will adopt one of the principles from the Olympics in terms of test events. So we will utilise the French Open as a test event for the Ryder Cup. And, this is an important aspect to the methodology. But equally, I'm very pleased in the way that we're working with our partner, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and its range of technology partners. In fact, we have adopted an 8-phase approach through staging, through design, through configuration off-site, on-site. We do tech rehearsals. So the whole thing is very structured and methodical in terms of the approach as we get closer to the Ryder Cup in September.
All right. Well, we've looked through this through the lens of technology and uniqueness and challenge. Let's look at this a bit through the lens of business. How will you know you've succeeded through the eyes of your sponsors and your organization? It seems to me that you're going to be charting new ground when it comes to business models around location, sporting, spectators. What are some of the new opportunities you hope to uncover from a business model perspective?
The platform has three key aspects to it. The first one is the ability to create the concept of a connected course, a truly connected course with near 100% connectivity at all times. The second element is the ability to capture data, and that data will drive insight and help us to understand behavioural patterns of spectators on the course. The third aspect, which is really the answer to your question, is how we utilise that intelligence and that insight to create real value for our sponsors. The days of sponsors thinking activation was branding and a hospitality program are long gone. They are now far more sophisticated in their approach, and their expectations are taken to a new level. And as the rights holder, we have an obligation to help them be successful in that activation and achieve their ROI. Moving from a spectator to a lead to a customer, from customer to an advocate is critical for them. And I believe that our choice of technology for the Ryder Cup and for the European Tour will help in that journey. So it's critical in terms of the value that we can now deliver to those sponsors and not meet their expectations, but exceed on their expectations.
You know, Michael, being a New Englander, I remember some time ago when the Ryder Cup was in Brookline, Massachusetts at the Country Club, and I was impressed by not only the teams from each continent area competing, but it seemed like the corporations were also competing for prestige, trying to outdo one another from either side of the pond in how they could demonstrate their worth and be part of this pageantry. Do you agree with me that the corporations are also in a sense competing, and that gives you a great platform for them to take advantage of your technology?
I have to say that healthy competition is good, and if they all want to exceed and compete with each other, that can only be good news for us in terms of the experience that we create, but it has to be exceptional for the fans as well. So collaboration and competition, I think, is critical. I believe that any suite of sponsors needs to operate as both as a family, but also in terms of that healthy competition as well.
Well, of course, time will tell which side wins, but when you do your post-mortem on the platform and the technology, what will be the metrics that you will examine to determine how well you succeeded in reaching and exceeding their expectations? What are those key metrics that you're going to look for 3 weeks afterward when you finally take that deep breath and say, okay, how do we do?
Well, as you'd expect, we have a whole series of financial measurements around merchandising, ticket revenue, sponsorship revenue, etc. But what the platform, the technology platform now gives us is an ability to go far beyond that. And critical to success will be the satisfaction of spectators, the satisfaction of players, and the satisfaction of our commercial family.
Let's look to the future. 4 years from now, as we know, the march of technology continues, and it's a rapid pace, more and more being done with machine learning, with utilizing data to its extreme. What might be different in 4 years at the next Ryder Cup technologically that will even further the goals in terms of user experience for the players, for the spectators, and for the sponsors?
Every Ryder Cup brings new opportunities, and technology is moving at a rapid pace. It's very difficult for me to sit here and have a crystal ball in terms of the future and what it may bring. But what I do know is data is becoming increasingly more fundamental to us. Historically, we've always captured scoring for an event, and that equates to around about 20,000 data points for a given tournament. We've recently extended it, and we now capture 7 times the amount of data through weather condition, through club type, through lie of the ball, yardage to the hole. And that equates to 140,000 data points per tournament. Over a schedule, that's 5.5 million data points. When we look at the statistical derivatives, we are looking at over 2 billion stats from a given tournament. And this is changing all the time. We can now utilize the Internet of Things to put sensors in anything that moves. And my view is if it moves, it can be tracked. And if everything is connected, then anything is possible.
It'd be interesting to see how many sensors and how much more information and detail we can get in terms of the game of golf. It's a very old game, but always seemingly new aspects of enjoying it and viewing it are coming to the fore. So I think we'll have to leave it there. We've been exploring how the IT Gordian Knot of a live sporting event of a huge caliber and huge scale is being sliced through innovation and pluck. And we've learned how the latest networks and applications will, across a massively dispersed environment, make the 2018 Ryder Cup a digital masterpiece for its 250,000 spectators. So please join me in thanking our guest. We've been here with Michael Cole, the Chief Technology Officer of the European Tour and Ryder Cup. Thank you so much, Michael.
My pleasure. Thank you indeed.
And a big thank you as well to our audience for joining us for this BriefingsDirect Voice of the Customer Digital Transformation Success Discussion. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host for this ongoing series of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise-sponsored interviews. Thanks again for listening. Please pass this along to your IT community and do come back next time.